Okay, depending on where you are in the world, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to today's webcast, A Core Capability, the Case for Underwriting Technology, which is brought to you by Insurance and Technology, Majesco Mastech, and broadcast by United Business Media, LLC. I'm Nathan Kahn, today's moderator. We want to make sure that this event is as interactive as possible, so I'd like to take a few minutes here to make some announcements before we get started. So if we can move on to the next slide, there are elements of this webcast that will appear as pop-ups, and we want to make sure that you can view them. So at this time, please disable any pop-up blockers if you haven't done so already. So this webcast contains audience polling. The polling question will appear in the slide presentation window. Please complete the poll when it appears and click on the Submit Answer button, which is located on the polling slide window. Thanks in advance for your participation. We encourage everyone to participate in our interactive Q&A session, which is at the end of today's event. Please feel free to submit questions to our guest presenters anytime during the webcast. Just type your question into the Ask a Question text area, which is below the media player window, and then click the Submit button. The slides will advance automatically throughout the event, and if you'd like, you may download a copy of the slides by clicking on the Download Slide button, which is located below the presentation window. If you have any technical problems, please click on the Help link below the media player, and it will take you to our webcast help guide. You can also contact our live technical support helpline, whose number is located within the guide. Okay, if we can move on to the speaker intro slide. Now on to the presentation, A Core Capability, the Case for Underwriting Technology. Discussing today's topic is Matthew Josefowicz. Matt is the director of the insurance practice at Novarica. He is well known and often quoted expert on insurance technology, operations, and e-business issues. He has presented his research and thought leadership at numerous industry conferences and has worked directly with many U.S. and international insurer CIOs to advise them on IT strategy and solution selection. Also presenting today is Eric Stockwell. Eric is the Senior Vice President for Majesco Mastech's North American Life and Annuity Division. Eric has 15 years of experience working for large insurance carriers, including The Hartford, Nationwide, and Transamerica. He has held line of business management positions in these firms, including running sales, finance, and product development teams. He has a history of achievement, innovation, and building growth organizations. So before I turn things over to Matt, I wanted to make a few quick comments. I want to make sure both representatives have plenty of time, so I'll keep it brief. So if we can move on to the next slide. One of the issues that's at the core of these underwriting technology discussions is, of course, art and science, and I thought I'd take some time to sort of deconstruct that topic today. In my opinion, what the art versus science debate meant several years ago and what it means now has a change, and it's changed for the better. In researching for this webcast, I came across a 2007 position paper by Ted Montross, who was the Chief Underwriting Officer at General Re. In his introduction, he mentions what was, in my view, the worst-case scenario when it comes to the art versus science debate during the earlier part of this decade, and that was simply that underwriters would ignore technology and discipline in favor of wishful thinking and overly optimistic forecasts. So taking stock of things in 2009, though, I think that scenario isn't what is at issue anymore. Resistance to technology in that sense, even in the underwriting process, is futile in today's environment. There are just too many ways in which technology can enhance the process, as our presenters will discuss today. Also in the Chief Underwriter's paper, he jokes that underwriting has become 83% science, 17% art. It's an interesting joke, I think, because it illustrates what really has changed about the debate, and that is that I don't think we need to be thinking about art and science as percentages anymore that push and pull against one another. The two work in a concert. The General Re Chief Underwriting Officer suggests that technology doesn't remove art from the underwriting process, but simply moves it back from the point of sale to earlier in the decision chain. So as we move on to the next slide, I think he's right, but what I really thought summed up the new art versus science relationship in underwriting is this line from an insurance and technology story, actually, that was written by my colleague Anthony O'Donnell last year. And what it says to me is that art and science are not adversaries anymore. Technology has added a level of science to the underwriting process, and because they've started to embrace that, it's helped the underwriters focus more on the art of their job. So with that, I'd like to hand things over to Matthew Josefowicz. Matt?
Thanks very much, Nathan. I appreciate it. And a little bit of time doing some back in this time of crisis. And if you background about Novarica, our and IT strategy, and we. Oh crap! Excuse me, I think I'm having audio.
Okay, sounds like Matt is having some technical difficulties. So perhaps what we can do is flip-flop the order of the presentations. Eric, are you prefer to jump ahead and?
Sure. Yeah, that's not a problem.
Okay. All right. So if we can just get the slides, there we go. All right, Eric, take it away.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you very much, and I think when we get back to Matt's presentation, one of the things that I think you'll find in what Novarica is seeing and a number of the analysts is that we're really fortunate to be in the industry at a time when so many new capabilities are making themselves available. We're poised at the start of an important transformational time, and it really is great to be part of these valuable changes. So if you can go to my first slide. I'd like to first provide a quick overview of Majesco Mastech for those of you who may not know us yet. We're a global company that covers over 10 countries with significant size and scale. We provide low-risk options to carriers, and we offer those in flexible engagement models. We have over 17 years of experience in our chosen verticals, and a long-lasting commitment to the insurance industry. Insurance is one of the places where we do really focus our efforts globally. We have a strong track record of success. We maintain intellectual property in the property casualty area, in life solutions, and all of these include policy administration, billing, and new business and underwriting, which is our subject for today. So next slide, please. One of the things that Matt's topics will talk about is really the importance of structured data in driving value into an insurance organization. We've been dealing so long as an industry with unstructured data, mostly usually paper and manual environments, that when we get just a little bit better with images and workflow engines, we're typically happy. But all of this is still unstructured data, which does not enable us to take advantage of the modern technology solutions. And what we must come to understand from what we're seeing in the industry is that this is no longer enough. We have the capability now to move to a structured data-driven model that provides access to new technologies, processes, and more solutions than ever before, and provides new ways to drive real value for companies. Let's recognize that the requirements providers that we all rely on will provide these information in these data formats that are needed to improve the processes through the enabling technology. Next slide, please. Let's take a look at some of the common concerns and issues and see if any of these resonate with your current situation. Really, the underlying here is that we have issue cycle times that are too long, upfront costs that don't turn into placed cases, case statuses are not transparent enough to producers and consumers, we have no access to senior underwriter time, on and on. We all hear the same kinds of issues in the marketplace. And what it really boils down to is the fact that we have this manual process that still causes delays and errors. And we're experiencing expense challenges related to these manual processes that were uncovered and magnified by the drop of investment income for carriers. We have training and retention needs also around the scarce resources because underwriters are getting more scarce, producers are getting more scarce, the average age of both has increased. We have decision inconsistency across carriers and within carriers that create confusion in the field. And as always, the industry needs to mitigate the risks that it takes on. So everybody's really dealing with the same kinds of issues at the same time. If we move to the next slide. It's a question really, how can technology help us resolve those kinds of issues? And the idea is that we can tie the value chain closer through the use of data. By capturing case information as data up front through electronic applications, we can leverage this information throughout the life of a policy from issue decision to claim and analysis. The increased automation can move routine cases and selected products like simplified issue through the process faster and free up underwriters to work on those more complex cases. And we can enhance the producer and consumer experiences through granular case tracking, escalation triggers to move cases, and automated creation and delivery of policy packets that utilizes all of the data we've collected along the way. We enable more collaboration throughout the value chain as well and generate immensely valuable business intelligence through data stores of the information collected because it's all data and can go into data warehouses. So again, a very important way to transform the overall process. Next slide, please. So as a provider of these solutions, what advice can we give to those who are seeking to transform their new business and underwriting process? First, look for solutions that provide a digital thread that connect the end-to-end new business and underwriting process. This digital thread provides data to make the most effective use of technology to enable the valuable process changes. Look for a common rules engine that can reduce the redundancies in the end-to-end process and reduce re-input and error rates. It's important to capture structured data in a way that leverages the information throughout the issue process and beyond, because you'll want to plan how you use business intelligence and data warehousing tools to provide the insight not only to the underwriting experience and workloads, but also to performing strategic analysis of your overall business model. You want to ensure that the rules can be rapidly changed and issued, as well as have audit trails that go throughout the rules and decision results process. Finally, you want to make sure that you use a componentized solution so that you use the pieces as they are needed. Save a familiar e-app if you have it, utilize a producer portal if your producers like that, and plug in those truly transformational elements into the overall transformed process. Next slide, please. So what's done with the components is that we take all of the issues and concerns that we heard earlier and are common throughout the industry, and we map them to the solution components that really transform the process. The data-driven environment enables e-application to get cases in good order and clear case a subset of those cases, making the overall process faster. Underwriter dashboards provide a more flexible and customized view to the incoming data and the rules being run, making underwriters more effective and more efficient and freeing up more time for producers. Workflows become more robust with load balancing and profile queues, and all of this drives value into the carrier through consistent and measurable rules-based underwriting. Next slide, please. So what we've done is we've taken a market problem of high cost and low satisfaction related to the unstructured data process and transform that overall process of new business and underwriting through the use of new capabilities that provide access to structured data. And when deployed appropriately, this change can drive significant value for carriers through risk mitigation, enhanced consumer and producer experience, and consistency of decisions. We directly address the most often heard concerns with a componentized structure that allows for a customized solution and customized experience based on the carrier choices. Next slide, please. So it's by providing this data in a tool set that's simple, configurable, and produces intuitive value to the entire value chain, from sales to application to requirements gathering, decisioning, and policy issuance. The data provides better access to real-time analytics, more control over the entire new business and underwriting process. And as we noted earlier, these are transformational times for the life industry because of these new enabling technologies. And as Malcolm Gladwell shows in his book Outliers, it's those who are most prepared to take advantage of transformational times that will truly separate themselves. So that's mine. And Matt, are you ready for yours?
Yes, Matt's back online. What we're going to do first is a jump to our first polling question, and then we'll move on with Matthew's presentation.
Okay.
Okay, so the first polling question is up. So what is the timeline for an underwriting system change at your organization? And the options are the next 6 months, next 12 months, next 2 to 3 years, not looking, recently implemented or under implementation, or not relevant. And as we give the audience some time to answer the poll question, Matt, I thought I might ask you, what are you seeing in the industry? Where are most insurance carriers when it comes to underwriting system change?
Well, I think there's definitely a lot of interest in applying technology to different elements of the underwriting process, and whether that's with a standalone underwriting system or even some of the core systems changes or investments in more workflow-type tools that can be brought to bear on underwriting. Certainly, a lot of the life annuity insurers that we're working with are looking to make some kind of change around streamlining this process.
Okay, great. All right, so if we could push the results to the poll question, please. All right, sounds like it's a little bit across the board, and of course the leader is not relevant. So take that for what you will. And with that, let's move on to Matt Josefowicz. Matt.
Sure. So first of all, let me apologize. Unfortunately, my trusty headset let me down. So forgive me for any audio quality issues related to this handset. I do apologize. As I said, I wanted to provide a little bit of background. Eric hit on some of the points that I wanted to make. Hopefully I can address them at a broader level here. Before I get started, I just wanted to, if we can go to the next slide, just do a brief introduction of Novarica for people who aren't familiar with us. We are strategy advisors focused on insurance operations and technology. And we provide personal advisory services to insurer CIOs, as well as published research around market trends, best practices, and vendor information. We are a division of Novantas LLC, which is an independent management consultancy for the financial services industries. We can go to the next slide. If we look at how insurers are addressing the market and technology demands that they're facing today, technology is absolutely core to all of them. And we like to say insurance is an information business, and information technology is the only way to create any kind of competitive advantage. Every process that insurers do, whether it's gathering, processing, or analyzing information, and all of those figure heavily in underwriting, is enabled by modern advances in information technology. And conversely, many of the established business practices at insurers were designed to work within the structures of the available information technology at the time. So a lot of the processes that are received wisdom about how insurance underwriting works are really artifacts of the available information technology in terms of gathering information from the field, routing it through the right people who had to look at it and make decisions about it, be able to make decisions about those pieces of information that were coming in unstructured on pieces of paper, and then render a decision and communicate back out through the agent back to the prospect. All of those standard processes are artifacts of the available information technology at the time. And so as we look at the way insurers are thinking about their processes today, they really should be thinking about them in terms of, what is this current state of information technology today and what is it likely to be tomorrow? In terms of what the market is doing today, obviously, we can go to the next slide as an illustrative quote from AM Best. It's been a very, very tough couple of years for life annuity insurers, no doubt. The combination of getting hit with market declines, various guarantees of the guaranteed products, which were very popular over the past couple of years, and then, of course, the the decline in demand that goes along with a recession for any voluntary product like life insurance or annuity investments has made it a very challenging environment for many life annuity insurers. Next slide, please. You have a pretty challenging situation on the life annuity side, especially with the loss of trust. I don't know if you can read the graphic there, but it's Bart Simpson writing, "My piggy bank is not entitled to TARP." Unfortunately, with many life insurers, especially national brand life insurers, being forced to take TARP money, it's tarnished the industry in terms of its rock-solid reputation, the life annuity industry certainly, at a time when it's also being tarred with the fallout from the health insurance debate and other areas. So that, combined with the decline in market value, et cetera, has made it a very difficult couple of years for the life insurance industry. One of the things that we are seeing in this environment is a trend towards product simplification. There is a new willingness to look at the market and to think about what it is that consumers are really looking for from life insurance in terms of both protection and investment capabilities. And there's a real focus on making products simple enough to understand, simple enough to buy. This may have impacts on distribution channels. It certainly will have impact on the underwriting process. And part of this is maybe not, it's really being driven by market demand, but it's also has a nice synergy with trends in regulation. If you look at what's happening with the potential for the Consumer Products Administration, Consumer Protection Administration for financial services that the current administration is proposing, having simple, easy to understand life products at the core of your product portfolio is likely to create a lot of value in the very near future. You can go to the next slide. So as we're seeing, the primary issues for life annuity insurers today are obviously resource constraints due to the downturn, shifting product mixes, and rapidly changing market dynamics. And what's become very clear is the importance of agility and the ability to adapt to change without adding additional expenditures. Next slide, please. At the same time, insurers are looking at operating in a world that is radically transformed from 15 years ago. And many insurers still have processes, again, based on the available information technology of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, when their consumers and the world that they operate in is radically different today. First of all, so this is basically the confluence of two trends that we call the world of data superabundance and the world of instant information accessibility. First of all, data has radically changed the accessibility of data, whether it's from commercial sources or government sources. There is structured information about every individual in the country out there for the asking, whether it's from a commercial source or a government source, and it's only getting more so if you look at the investments the government's making in individual health records, if you look at the advances on pharmacy records, if you look at the available information about lifestyle data that can be derived from purchases, et cetera. Now, there's regulations about how insurers can use all of these things, and the regulations haven't caught up with the reality. But the fact is, I believe that in the not-too-distant future, we're not too far away from one-question underwriting. What's your Social Security number, and do I have your permission to look up information about you from multiple sources? And once you can get to that, most of this information hopefully will be able to be pulled from these sources. Certainly we're not there today. There's all kinds of regulatory issues. There's all kinds of completeness issues today. But that is the world that's coming, and insurers need to start looking that way. At the same time, both individuals and staff's expectation of information technology has been radically transformed over the last 15 years by the emergence of the consumer internet. If you think about the way that you would have booked travel or bought a book or looked up information or bought something through the classifieds 15 years ago versus the way you do it today, it's radically, radically different, of course. The next generation of consumers and of office workers, have never known a world without these logos, and they expect to do their jobs very, very differently. and they expect to be able to use information that's available. And one of the things that's happening now that's never happened before is that people have better technology in their personal lives than they have at work. Think about, excuse me, I'm sure many of you have had in your organization a demand to support the iPhone, which does not come from corporate IT. It comes from executives and regular staff in your organization using this piece of technology in their personal lives that's better than what they have access to at work, and pushing enterprise technology to keep up with personal individual technology. And that's not just around mobility, it's also around access to information, it's about access to information that facilitates personal relationships. In a lot of different areas, personal technology is driving enterprise technology. Next slide, please. So we believe this world of data superabundance is going to have a major impact, pardon me, a major impact on the life underwriting process. Today, most of our information comes from prospects and agents. Some of it may come from internal staff or contractors, and relatively little comes from third-party data providers. Over the years, that's going to shift. We don't have a specific timeline on this, but over time, more and more information is going to come from third-party data providers. And I've shown this slide to many insurer executives, and in some cases they object in terms of the completeness and reliability. And I ask a very simple question. How many of you believe that the information that you're getting today from your agents is flawless? And how many believe it's more trustworthy than the information you would get from a third-party data source that's not being paid to place that business? And that tends to drop a lot of the hands in the audience. So we believe that this is the way that underwriting is going. More and more information will come from third-party data sources. Less will come from the prospect and the agent directly. And this has an implication in terms of the resources that are deployed in the underwriting process. Today, a lot of our resources in the underwriting process are in the gather phase, which leaves relatively few for the analyze phase. Over time, we believe the resources required for the gather phase are going to shrink dramatically, which will free up more and more resources for the analyze phase. Hopefully, most of that will be automated. But again, that's where staff expertise is going to be most valuable, is in analyzing the information that is just flowing into the enterprise in structured electronic form. Next slide, please. So if we look at the implications for life annuity underwriting in the near future, there's going to be more reliance on third-party data, which is going to reduce not in good order and errors. There's going to be more automated scoring and decisioning, which should increase the consistency of decisioning and increase the productivity per underwriter. There'll be more straight-through flow of information from insured to agent to underwriter, which means faster turnaround time and fewer not takens. And more process transparency for agents, which means better agent relationships, and again, more agent productivity. The challenge here, if we go to the next slide, the challenge here is really one of change management. When we study innovation in the insurance context, it's very, very rare that technology is a limiting factor. In general, the limiting factor is organizational resistance, and especially the fear of change by business staff. Many underwriters, when you talk about automation of underwriting, get very, very nervous because, it goes back to that art science debate that Nathan was talking about, and they, feel like you're trying to reduce what they do to a set of algorithms, when in many cases, a lot of it is a set of algorithms. Of course, there's a human dimension on top of it that needs to be there in many cases. But the real challenge here is change management, and it's also a matter of incentives for change. One of the difficult truths of many insurance enterprises is that the organizational incentives to take a risk and do something different don't at all counterbalance the negative consequences of taking a risk and failing, of doing something different and failing. People like to say it's a risk-averse industry. It's also an industry with a risk-averse incentive structure. Most mid-senior level staff, and certainly most line staff at most insurers, will do much better on a personal basis if they go along to get along and keep their heads down and just do what they've always done and resist change than they will if they stick their neck out and create some great level of efficiency or productivity gain, or enable some great level of efficiency or productivity gain for the company. And that's something that needs to be addressed at an organizational level. This is a survey that we did from our research council around innovation specifically, and when we asked, how, how important are the following barriers to innovation, on a 1 to 7 scale, and the black boxes on the side are the numbers that listed those as most important. And you can see most important barriers to innovation, especially, and innovation includes reforming of the underwriting process and leveraging technology appropriately in the underwriting process. The lack of incentives for organizational risk-taking and the fear of change by business staff are the top issues across the line for any kind of innovation. Fear of change by technology staff, lack of structure to convert pilot projects into broad initiatives, lack of understanding of new technologies are down there at the bottom. So it's not that insurers and their technology groups can't embrace the current and future generations of information technology to really revolutionize their processes, which are based on information technology from 30 years ago, but that their organizational resistances are very, very high. And that's a change management issue. It's an incentives issue. It's beyond the scope of IT, but it's something that IT needs to be aware of, or else they're going to spend a lot of time beating their heads against a wall for no reason. So that's kind of the challenge that I wanted to lay out for you. That's kind of what we see coming in the next generation of underwriting technology and the application of information technology to the underwriting process. Again, I really apologize for the audio issues at the beginning of the presentation. I thank you, Eric, for being able to jump in and reverse the order, and I look forward to the discussion.
Okay, great. Thank you, Matt. Before we move on to the Q&A, can we move on to the next poll question, please? Okay, so the next poll question is what is the key focus at your carrier's underwriting department currently? Is it consistent practices and standards, underwriting workflow and process improvements, expense management, improved risk selection and risk management, training and retention, or other drivers? So as I give everyone time to answer the question, Matt, one more time, what are you seeing? Are the carriers that you're dealing with focused on any one of these particular aspects?
I would say underwriting workflow and process improvements is really at the top because that's the one that's closest related to market demands. Being able to make that underwriting process faster, more transparent to the agents, more consistent internally is really top level in terms of competitiveness, market competitiveness.
All right, great, thanks. Okay, so why don't we push the results of the second poll question? Okay, then there you go. Underwriting workflow and process improvements, 50% of those that responded. Okay, so now hold on. Why don't we move on with the Q&A form, and as we do that, let's push out the feedback form. So before we start the Q&A, please fill out the feedback form that's opened on your computer. To complete the form, please press the Submit Answer button, and that's at the bottom of the page. Thanks in advance for filling out the feedback form. Your participation in this survey helps us improve future webcasts. Okay, and now on to the Q&A. So I thought I'd start the Q&A with a question of my own, and that is just curious, and this is for either of the presenters. Just how has the economic turmoil of the past year or so affected how carriers view or prioritize underwriting technology? And once again, that's for either of you, Matt or Eric.
Sure. I think in our experience, it's part of a overall reassessment of the information technology infrastructure and its ability to support agile business practices and the ability to react to changing environment. I think one thing that the recent crisis has brought home to life insurers is that the need for supporting agility is not optional. Things can change very, very rapidly. There are companies that were making, a ton of money on highly structured, complex, variable products well into '07 that are scrambling to figure out what to do right now. And one of the reasons they're scrambling is not because they can't figure out, new business processes, but it's because they can't figure out how to bring their old systems, which were perfectly designed for their existing previous business model, to support a new change in direction. And that's really the emphasis, when we talk to companies about their technology infrastructure. It's not just that it's optimized to do what you're doing today, but it's optimized to be able to change to support how you might need to change tomorrow.
And the thing that we're seeing in the industry is that the investment income that companies were making in the past had effectively made some of the manual processes not as big of a problem for companies because there was enough other income that was covering the expense issues. It wasn't that they got created new, but that they were always there, just hidden a little bit more than currently. And as the investment income went down, these expense issues that had been there in the past just surfaced more and more and became highly magnified. I think the other point, too, that Matt had brought up before is that as the ability to use interest rates and some product designs to compete at a product level has become more constrained because of the current economic environment, companies are looking for other ways to differentiate themselves and to make themselves more attractive to producers and consumers. And so the whole intake, relationship, experience of buying a policy from a company is becoming much more of a strategic approach until the ability to utilize the product features again comes back to the fore a little bit. So much more of a strategic approach to making themselves more attractive to the producers and consumers.
Okay. All right. So next question, and we have plenty of time here as the questions started coming in. We talked a little bit about how data analytics can help manage risk, and someone in the audience just wants a little more detail there. How does data analytics help manage risk? Again, that's for either one of you.
Yeah, I can just take up some of the experience that we've had with the underwriting tools that we've used, and we partner with a large insurance carrier who's done some of the actuarial analysis of the results that have come through. One of the things that Matt touched on is that the quality of data, the information that you get flowing through for the underwriting process tends to be a little bit better based on the third-party providers. You're able to utilize rules technologies so that you're able to better understand the decision process. You're freeing your underwriters up more from kind of the rote preferred cases that don't have a lot of moving parts, and they're focusing their really high-level underwriting capabilities on the complex cases where they need to look at a lot of substandard evidence and understand, what they need to do to rate a case. So you're actually applying the abilities of the underwriters in the places where it's most valuable, and you're utilizing the technology to enable the preferred cases and the ones that don't have a lot of issues to move through the pipeline faster. And what we found is because of the combination of these effects, you're actually driving better mortality results into the company because of the use of the technology and what it does for the overall process transformation in a company. So that's one of the ways that the data does help. And then, as I mentioned before, you can go back over time and start to look at protective value studies and do much more analysis around what bits of evidence are actually giving you what you want from an underwriting perspective, and not really waiting for mortality results that occur over 5, 6, 7 years before you can make some changes.
Okay. All right. Moving on to the next question. What are some of the areas being invested in by carriers as it relates to underwriting?
Matt, you're probably in a better spot.
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of different areas. Everything that starts with the intake of the application from the agent or producer, routing that application to the underwriter, subjecting that to any kind of automated decisioning or scoring based on the data that is included in that application, and then being able to get a quote or issue a policy rapidly and get that back to the agent, and at the same time control the back and forth and the workflow if there's a paramed involved or additional requirements gathering, et cetera. So it really has to do with electronic applications, workflow, and data analysis.
Okay, great. Thanks, Matt. All right, so this next question comes from a large insurance carrier, and they want to know if either of you have seen similar issues in the property and casualty insurance space as you have in life and annuity.
Sure. If anything, property casualty is more advanced because certain lines of property casualty, obviously, but personal lines are very advanced in this space. The level of automated decisioning in personal lines underwriting is extremely high, and partly that's driven by the availability of structured data. With the MVR data being available and other data being available for automatic scoring, especially in the personal line side. This is much further advanced in personal lines in P&C. And even in commercial lines, depending on the complexity of the line, there have certainly been investments in improved underwriter-producer communication and tracking the status of cases during the underwriting process, flagging for what information needs to come back at what point, so that the producer has a very clear sense of the status of the case and what they need to do to push it forward. That's really one of the biggest things here, is that traditionally the underwriting process has been relatively opaque to producers. They send in an application and then they have to call and stay in touch with a human being who has to go look for the case file and see what status it is, and call them back, and they're never at their desks at the same time. And even if it's an email, it's things get lost, and there's challenges in terms of what you can exchange via email, et cetera. So a lot of the advances in terms of both underwriter workflow and agent portals really allow more rapid communication and cooperation between those two important elements of the underwriting process, the producer and the underwriter.
Yeah, and I'll agree with that. We have a property casualty side of our business that focuses on that vertical, and the advances on the underwriting and technology side seem to be much faster on the property casualty side than on the life side. And I think some of that just has to do with some of the decision sets and information that underwriters are dealing with and a comfort level there. But we are seeing a interest in looking at the new technologies and capabilities around structured data, and not just the underwriting component, but how do you tie that data all the way through the end-to-end process on the P&C side as well.
Okay, great. Thanks, Eric. All right, this next question also from a large insurance carrier, and they ask, can you explain how the capability of more straight-through flow of information from insured to agent to underwriter reduces not takens? What data have you gathered to support this statement?
It's really a matter of speeding the underwriting process. I don't have formal data that I can share, but in our experience, most of the carriers that we've worked with, part of their goal for accelerating the underwriting process and getting those policies out faster is they believe that it reduces the not taken rate because the prospect has less time to change their mind.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's buyer fatigue and buyer remorse, and much less time to fill that gap in. We've worked with some carriers where it was taking as long as 3 to 6 months to get policies out, and people will have often forgotten that they even applied, much less that they had an interest. So I think some of that is working with carriers direct on the street, but also the not taken rates is an important element of pricing your products and the assumption that you make around pricing the insurance product. And it is one of the value drivers that we've seen in some of the carriers we've worked with, where we do see the not taken rates based on not only their actual past experience, but their assumptions that are built into product pricing. The results of the straight-through process is actually better than both of those.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. Next question comes from someone in the vendor community, and they suggest that historically independent producers have not embraced e-application technology, and they ask, why do you expect this to change, and over what time frame? And I guess I would add to that, do you expect it to change? That's for both of you.
Yeah, I definitely expect it to change. I think we're seeing it change now. Depending on the line, a lot of life annuity companies are getting a significant portion of their applications electronic today, and that is growing. It's not as high an uptake as on the P&C side, obviously, but again, it's primarily related to the speed issue. If an underwriting company can show their distributors how getting them the application electronically gets them a decision faster and truncates the underwriting process, agents will see how it's in their best interest to do so. There are some companies that are just mandating it now, that are saying we're not taking paper applications anymore. So if the companies are looking at the efficiency gains and the process advantages of getting that initial application in electronically in structured electronic form as opposed to having it come in paper and get imaged, they're cutting a week or 2 weeks off the app submission process by doing so, and that's a meaningful speed advantage to independent agents.
And we've seen both the carrot and the stick approach on it, where you can price products to add some incentive on commission side to induce use of electronic applications, or as Matt said, kind of just say this product, this is the way that it will come in based on our assumptions and pricing. I think that one of the things that we recognize, and again, I spend a lot of time with carriers, producers will interact with a carrier the way that they want to, and you want to make it as easy as possible for them. So, this isn't to say that if there's a large BGA or a large MGA out there that wants to interact in a particular way, that a carrier is not going to make a business decision about that. I think it's important to recognize that it's really not a technology constraint so much as it is a business choice and a carrier choice, and it's looking at the benefits of the downstream data, the improvements to profitability, and the upstream increases in revenue, increases in relationship with the producer. I think that one of the things we as an industry would, as a technology industry, would be well served to do is to actually move more of these capabilities into the MGA and BGA world, where they can continue to add the value to the producers that they like to, and provide them with some of these capabilities for electronic application and utilizing the workflow and capabilities to not only improve the back-end process for insurance carriers, but also improve the process and cost structures for MGAs. So I think we're focused very much on the carrier world at this point in time, but I think a lot of these solutions and issues and capabilities could be pushed further forward towards the consumer and help out the producer community as well.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, one last question here, and this is another P&C versus life question, and it comes from a P&C carrier. Matthew, do you see a difference between where P&C and L&A are spending their IT dollars? Is P&C spending more on the front end and or policy administration systems versus life and annuity maybe replacing underwriting system, things like that?
We actually see a fair level of consistency. I'd say the property casualty companies have been more active in core system replacement. than the life annuity companies, although there's certainly a lot of activity now, at least exploratory activity, and starting to be some significant replacement activity on the life insurance side. Obviously, the inhibitor there is the conversion process is much more daunting to life insurers, where you have complex product rules that aren't adequately documented, and you've got policies in the system that may be decades old, and just the prospect of converting those is quite daunting for a lot of life companies. But in many cases, their priorities are the same. Distributor service, improving internal workflow, and improving speed to market. Those are things that cut across both areas. It also, of course, it depends on line of business. But I'd say while we see a little bit more of the core system replacement activity on the property casualty side, we've been surprised by how much activity we're seeing on the life side as well.
Excellent. Okay, Eric, anything to add there?
No, I think Matt has a great view to those kinds of spending levels.
Okay. All right. Well, that's going to bring a close to our Q&A. Are there any closing comments from any of the presenters?
No, I think again, I appreciate the time and that we were able to get Matt back on, because I think there's some real valuable things in terms of where we are in the transformation process with the carrier community.
All right, excellent. All right, well, then on that will conclude today's event. For those of you who submitted questions that we didn't have time to get to during the webcast, one of our experts will send you a personal response via an email. So thank you all for attending today's webcast, A Core Capability, the Case for Underwriting Technology, brought to you by Insurance and Technology and Majesco Mastech. Okay, so if we could push the resource slide, please. For more information about today's webcast, please visit any of the resource links that are open before you. Within the next 24 hours or so, you will receive a personalized follow-up email with the details and a link to today's presentation on demand. Additionally, you can view today's event on demand by visiting www.insurancetech.com/webcast. This webcast is copyright 2009 by United Business Media, LLC. The presentation materials are owned or copyrighted, if that is the case, by Insurance and Technology and or Majesco Mastech, who are solely responsible for its content, and individual speakers are solely responsible for their content and their opinions. On behalf of our guests, Matthew Josefowicz and Eric Stockwell, I'm Nathan Kahns. Thanks for your time and have a great day.